Hey, party people. Welcome to Watch Me Design a Fashion Collection part 733. I don't know. I forget. But today we're going to talk about fabrics. And I'm going to show you a few different ways to approach picking out fabrics. And listen, I get a lot of questions on here everywhere. Oh, what's your favorite brand of marker? And what's your favorite brand of color pencil? It's like, listen, this is the stuff I draw with every day. There's no consistent brand. There are brands I like, brands I don't think are as great, brands that are okay if you're on a budget, whatever. I don't really care. Fabrics, okay, if you're a designer, fabrics are your true medium. You should care about fabrics. You should care about the fiber content of your fabrics. You should care about the eventual care labeling you're going to add to your clothes. Like, can you hand wash these? Can you machine wash these? What temperature works? Those kinds of things. Are your fabrics color fast? Are your fabrics sustainable? Are they organic? Are they recycled? Are they biodegradable? Like, those kinds of things are more important, and you should invest far more time obsessing over fabrics and reading books on fabrics and going to fabric stores and feeling fabrics and, reading the labels at the ends of the bolts of fabric to get your brain and your eye connected with the feel on your hand of fabrics with what you're reading. Like, oh, this is what polyester satin feels like. Oh, this is what silk satin feels like, okay? So these are the things that you should be obsessing over, not what marker brand I'm using. Nobody cares, okay? By that, I do mean when people look at your portfolio and, they think about the designs, and then when you are making your own clothes, people are gonna think about how your clothes hang and drape and how the model looks when they're walking because of the flow and the fit of your clothes. And no one... they're not going to look at your illustrations and be like, oh, look how beautiful Copics. Nobody cares, okay? So let's obsess about fabrics. I show a few different methods on how to do fabrics, and some people really get into the whole oh, that's so mathematical, that's so logical, and it doesn't really allow you to express your creativity. But, here's the thing, is if you walk into a fabric store without having any kind of game plan, you just end up wandering aimlessly and just kind of grab things. Or like, oh, this is cool. Oh, this is cool. And then eventually you just have a bunch of stuff that's cool and you don't know what to do with it. And that's why you have entirely too much fabric in your studio right now that you don't know what to do with. Raise your hand if you're guilty. Me too. But I'm just saying, I already know that is not a productive way to shop for fabric, okay? And even on the business end of things, if you walk into a fabric trade show without a game plan, without a shopping list, without a list of potentials, they don't have to be like, I'm looking for 40 mummy Duchess satin in magenta because Pantone color of the year is magenta, which I don't really like, but whatever. It doesn't have to be that precise, but you should at least walk into a fabric store or trade show with I really want some beautiful linens. I'm going to go look at some linens. I'm going to look at some sustainable linens. And this is my general color palette. If you were following along at home, I had the colors, and then I wasn't happy with the neutrals. And then I was like, oh, the camels. And so I have the olive drabs, the camels, a deep cool tone sepia, not a chocolate brown, but it's really got those cool undertones in there. I went to the marker store, and picked up a few other pastel-y neon vibe colors. And now this is my final color story. But yeah, if you can, you can cut these in half or whatever, or make another swatch sheet, take your color story and take a list of what you think is going to vibe for what you need for this collection, okay? So even if it's a loose list, go take a list. It's when you go to the grocery store and when you're hungry, you go to the grocery store and you buy everything. And then you come home and you're like, what? I just spent $7,000 on organic produce and it's going to go bad so soon, but I shopped hungry. Or you go to the store, you're not hungry, you don't have a list, you didn't meal prep, you didn't like look through some recipes and think, oh, I want to make spaghetti this week, I want to make like a panzanella this week, whatever, right? And you didn't have anything, so you're at home and you have all of these random ingredients in your fridge, but you don't have a game plan, and so you want to make this, but you're missing this, and you want to make this, and you're missing like 3 things, okay? It's exactly the same with fabric shopping, all right? Another thing I want to go over is the fact that when we are processing inspiration and building our color stories and then our fabric stories, I teach it in this order so that it's more organized for the person trying to learn. But do keep in mind that in the industry, these steps are often overlapping or all happening at the same time. Okay, someone might think, we're doing a summer and I love eyelet. But I don't want to do just white eyelet. I want to look at some colors of eyelet. So they talk to their eyelet person and they're looking at all these eyelets and they notice there's all these pinks and yellow eyelets. And they're like, oh, I'm feeling this. Let's build this color story with the pinks and the yellow eyelets. And so you add colors that work with those eyelets, and then you add some fabrics that work with the eyelets. And you're like, well, I need a jacket weight. So it kind of can build together like that, like all at the same time overlapping. But it's hard to teach like that. It doesn't make sense to students following along, trying to make sense of each step for me to teach it like that. But do keep in mind, it doesn't have to be step 1, step 2, step 3, okay? Although I will say the overall process of inspiration, color, fabric, building the direction, all of that is the first steps before you get to, pulling motifs and building silhouettes and getting samples of your embroidery and so forth and so forth. Always keep in mind the season when you are pulling fabrics. There are a lot of fabrics out there that are not exclusively fall, winter, or spring, summer. There are a lot of brands out there that are more about seasonless dressing, and that's fine. But do keep in mind that if you are designing for fall, winter, you're probably going to want some coat fabrics. Some lighter weight jacket fabrics and some heavier coat fabrics if you're doing outerwear. And if you are doing outerwear for a spring summer collection, you're not going to choose a heavy wool Melton. If you're going to do a jacket for a spring summer, you're thinking in terms of heavier linens, denims, cotton twills, something like that is more spring summer jacket vibe. Tropical wools that are worsteds versus woolens, those kinds of things. If you don't know what that means, please go watch my wools video. I have a whole fabric playlist. I'll drop the link below. Let's go back to my mind map. So in my sketchbook, I've created this table to kind of start my shopping list, so to speak. And if you remember my mind map, I love my mind map. It's separated into 4 different definitions of the word preposterous. And so I'm going to sort of get ideas from each section and put them in these columns. And then I'm going to play around and see what overlaps, see what the best ideas are, and so forth. Now, my y-axis, so to speak, there's 5 categories of materials that I want to think about gathering for the collection. Now, the first one, and you'll probably remember these from previous fabric videos, but first we have bottom weights, which are your heavier fabrics made, to make pants, jackets, again, always season appropriate. So when I say heavier, always season appropriate version of heavier. And then top weights, which are things you can make blouses or tops out of. If you're a brand that does t-shirts, a lot of cut and sew knits, you're going to include your knit jerseys in here. And if you're not, if you're more into blouses, more like your cotton shirtings, your silk shirtings, your georgettes, your batiste, if you're looking for some of that spring, summery feel, right? Really light. If you are if you're a knitwear designer and you're doing fully fashion knits, you're putting in here more lighter weight yarns for lighter spring sort of sweaters. Dress weights. This is a kind of a more ambiguous sort of category because you can make like a cute shift dress out of denim. You will probably do better with like a slightly lighter weight denim, but I've seen some in a stiffer, thicker, more winter weight denim that are really cute and it really keeps that boxy shape. But you can also do dresses made completely out of chiffon, a couple of layers of chiffon so it's not completely see-through, but chiffon nonetheless. So this is kind of left to how the designer's aesthetic and what they think of dresses and the kinds of dresses they make, all in context of the collection. Novelty is like, you're not going to use it a ton. Maybe it's going to be for your most editorial pieces. Maybe it's going to be used sparingly as trim. It's like that novelty color. These are my neutrals and going to be used a lot. And these, my super neon pop colors, they're not the focus. They could be if you're a very neon, bright color oriented company and you wanted your collection to be all about neon. So it's not about the color. It's about how you're going to use it. And for me, these are just going to be pop colors used sparingly. The focus is going to be here really. Even the neutrals aren't going to be the focus. So novelty, and they can be embellished fabrics. They can be real specialty fabrics that are so expensive. They're a little bit out of the price point for your brand, but you want to add a special touch to things. I've seen brands use like little bits of holographic material to add some futurism, or leather trim to wool coats because they love the luxurious feel of leather touches, but they're not going into leather quite yet. So this is novelty. And then embellishments, these are your sequins, your pailles, your beading, your patches, like thinking about those kinds of things and how you're going to add them. For me, it's like the Monopoly game pieces, the toys, the Barbie toys, the little toy cars, like all those things that I had wanted to use in lieu of traditional beads. That's where these would fit in. Okay, so let's go back to my mind map and start filling out my table. So number one is my irrational, contrary to reason, common sense. So I have like raincoat with many holes, bikinis and tiny vests covered in tiny toys, and ruined fabrics. Okay. So the notes I want to put here are like ruined fabrics. And I'm putting there in the bottom weights because I did put here suede, washed, watercolored, and perforated. So I can go back to this note here, the watercolor suede. And then I put here silks that have been shredded, washed, overstitched. Okay, so I put here in the dress weights, ruined fabrics. I don't imagine many vendors have silks that are pre-ruined. Maybe I could do a call out with my neighbors if they have any ruined clothes that they were going to throw away. I've done it before when I wanted to do like a vintage upcycled denim project, and I actually put on our email string, hey, does anyone have any jeans that they're going to throw away? Because I would like to take them. And I got a lot of pairs of jeans. Anyways, and the novelty, it could be the holy raincoat material, like a PVC. Although that's not very sustainable. And I'm gonna paint all of this with a sustainability brush and seek out sustainable options once I've kind of taken my notes on what I'm going to do. Because that's gonna be the next step for me, is to just like see what I can source the most sustainably. And then here, my absurd, ridiculous, foolish, ludicrous, farcical. So I have metallic brocades. Brocades are a fairly heavy weight, so we're going to put them in the heavy bottom weight category. And then I'm going to put studs here in the embellishment because I already said I was doing studs. Oh, right. Here we have the tiny toys and gadgets, little yo-yos and stuff. Oh, possibly balloons. And then Monopoly game pieces. Oh, pearls, gems, Monopoly game pieces, Monopoly. Monopoly, please sponsor my videos and send me some extra game pieces. Even better if they're messed up game pieces that you can't sell anymore because they're all gnarly looking. And in lieu of not sponsoring me, you could possibly just not sue me, because this is not about trying to steal your trademark or anything. Okay, so this is clear PVC quilted with feathers. And that's a novelty. Here we're going back to the PVC. You know, PVC is a novelty. It's the majority of your collection or your wardrobe should not be a bunch of unbreathable plastics that are holey or stuffed with feathers. I don't know. Neon top stitching thread. Gotta see if there is something out there that I can do to mimic this effect without the usage of PVC. Maybe I actually end up using like something like an organza, which is very see-through. Not completely like clear plastic, but it is very see-through. It's shinier and stiffer than chiffon, but still very see-through. Easily quilted and infinitely softer and more wearable, because, you know, your skin can breathe and it's soft against the skin. And so, you know, maybe organza is the way to go. It'll be a different look, but did it need to be the exact same look? Did I need it to be super shiny? I don't know. So just things to think about, right? Just keep making the notes. This is your brainstorming tableau. What else? Chain suspender. So let's put chains in here. This is like a very embellishment heavy section, right? And then number 3 is extravagant and excessive, a blouse with too many ruffles. So in here, okay, let's think about shirting blouse weight fabrics where you can have 100 layers. Remember, this was this with like 100 million layers of ruffles. And so you want to have the ability to gather all those tiny ruffles. So it has to be very thin and something where it can be really layered without having these really huge fat seams, or, you know, I'm kind of going back to the whole organza feel. So I'm thinking of organza again, because it can be stiff enough, like maybe, chiffon won't do it. Even organza, you'd have to have several layers together, alternating with something stiffer, like a crin or a net. So layers of crin and net, and then, you know, sandwich with organza, because this organza is going to be soft against the face, against any part of your skin. Some of those really stiff net crinoline materials are kind of scratchy. So you want to have that buffer between your skin and the ruffles. Maybe horsehair. Horsehair feels slinky against the skin. So as long as you don't have the rough cut edges next to your skin, horsehair against your skin is fine. So those are some options for, and maybe we do all of them. Literally all of them. Horsehair, if you watched my how to create volume video, I'll link that below. You know, horsehair, you can actually gather one edge. So it doesn't like sheer gather like one side. It actually shortens the length of one side. So it looks like a circle skirt. You know, it's like horsehair is wide and straight, but it's got a little thread along one side. And so you can shorten it so you could end up making it like a circle skirt. So it'll start ruffling or flouncing, whatever you want to call it. And then we were talking about here the military influence coming in here with the many ruffles. And so something that is going to look like a wool gab that will pull, wool gabardine that will contrast with all these frippery layers like that. And then this is the this is where we're talking about the ropes, okay, where we were taking the silk rags and turning them into ropes. So this is your novelty. Although honestly, I love the ropes made out of rags so much that it might end up being more of a feature, but we'll put it in here. And then here, I wanted beads, like paved beads that look like metals. So I'm gonna put metals in quotes. And then the last section, we have a word a pompous windbag would use. Ooh. Oh, this was actually the military. So I had kind of bunched these two in this dress with the military and the, so we can move these over. Wool gab, but deconstructed. Balloons or flowers pouring out. So in lieu of that Loewe balloon collection that I was trying to avoid looking like, let's scratch the balloons, because this was this inspiration where it was like a half military, half, you know, I had that image of Charlotte Rampling in that movie. I think you know what I'm talking about. I'm brain farting on the name. So harnesses strapped to sections of the body with drapes, aka the deflated hot air balloon effect. And so, you know, that's going to be more of your novelty strappings. And this is kind of a category, like you can research different materials you can use for strappings. Like you can literally get leather strips, or you can get that will look like skinny belts that look like a proper, like, you know, BDSM harness. Or you can get something that's more like lingerie, where you're basically making the harness out of bra straps, so it's stretchy and it gives and it doesn't chafe. And then when I was talking about balloons or flowers, because of the deflated water hot air balloon thing, I was thinking about what is that flower that people like to eat? I think they're squash blossoms. They're kind of this color and they're really like flowers, and you eat them with some sort of fancy cheese. This idea of like rotting flowers. So wilting, rotting flowers, but obviously not real ones. So we're here. This is the main concept sketch. And so I do want something that's a bit like a parachute silk. So let's go in here with like a parachute silk. Okay, so now I have all of my fabrics listed on my table, and it's like, it looks like it's not a lot. It is a lot. I don't know. There's like a lot of novelty and add-ons and things. Here's the thing. And I want you to, this is very important, especially if you're thinking about doing this for your own brand, and that if you are trying to build a brand aesthetic, trying to build your own house codes, trying to build a continuous aesthetic for your brand, so you're not jumping around season to season. Because it's always that balance of offering something new and fresh, but still holding on to your brand aesthetic and signature so that people recognize your brand for what it is. You know how you can look at a Versace collection and be like, yeah, that really looks like Versace. And sometimes you can tell exactly why. Leather strappings, Medusa symbolism, black and gold, chains, safety pins, bright colors, short skirts, a very powerful woman aesthetic. You know, there are all these like very visual trappings, but then there are also this vibe that Versace gives off that you're like, yeah, that looks like Versace. And if you're interested in building that kind of brand aesthetic that people can see and recognize, you know, one of the things is the usage of fabrics. Think about all the things that I listed that have to do with the materials. Medusa gold, you know, the strappings, the hot colors, you know. And if you look at a brand like, say, Chanel, we recognize Chanel for the tweeds, the black and white, the camellias, the pearls. There's all this iconography in the materials used consistently that we associate with different brands. And therefore, you do not need to feel like every single season you have to come up with an entirely new table of fabrics. There are things that you're going to be generally attracted to as a designer. You are attracted to these specific fabrics and you like to use them and you like to explore the design within them. And then as you get better and, you know, build your expertise about certain materials, you know, your brand starts getting a reputation for being able to use these materials. Like, you know, how some brands are really known for their leather hand, you know, craftsmanship, you know, Max Mara with their wool and cashmere coats, they dominate that category. It is perfectly fine for you to have a category, have a small selection of fabrics that you're good at and want to use consistently, and really build your reputation on how beautifully you can manipulate a small selection of fabrics. So don't think every single time it has to be new. When I do these projects for you, I try to bring something new every time. Because, you know, if I'm doing the same thing over and over again, you're learning less. But don't think that you as a designer, you as a brand have to do that. If you're building a portfolio and you want to have 4 projects for your portfolio, you should show the breadth of everything that you can do and also want to do. There's no point in designing something you hate just so that you get a job that where you're designing all the stuff you hate because they really like that one collection you hated. You know what I mean? But if you're a brand and you're building your aesthetic, it's like, okay, so now we have to start all over from scratch. No. I mean, if you love playing with denim, think about all the denim houses out there. They're all obsessed with denim and they build their brands on denim. And, you know, they do other things like chambray and shirtings and t-shirts, you know, but they're a denim brand and they're known for denim. And that's why people go to see them. So you can either build a house like a denim house where it's really focused on a material, a leather goods house, a denim brand, or you can build your brand like Versace, like Chanel, where you're known for specific materials and textures and fabrics, but it's not the only thing you do, but they are part of your house codes and your brand aesthetic. And if you want to hear me talk more about brand aesthetic and house codes, I'll drop the link to the video below. Okay, that was a lot of talking. I'm done talking today. Are you still here? Hi. I love geeking out about fabric. I love geeking about design process. So that's why these videos can get a little bit long. But if you're still here with me, you're probably also as geeky about design and fabrics as I am. I love you. You're my people. As usual, please, you know, subscribe, like, thumbs up, share all the ways you show me love. Drop me all your questions in the comments below. And I will see you in the next video.